He tainted the Clinton administration pretty effectively before he
exactly.
died.
And it was Atwater's works that they were screaming and yelling at, that were at work to try to undermine.
And since they're still at work, this is why people need to see this movie. Stephen Forbes says this is not a political movie. It's not right or left. I'm not sure if that's true. That's great because it allows.
Well, I think it's deeper than right and left.
Yeah,
I think it's deeper than right and left because I think again. Again, the story of who this guy is and the Greek tragedy. Stephen talks about the Greek tragedy that, when you reach for the stars, the gods are going to come and smack you, and and that's what happens to him, and just at the moment when he's at the peak of his power, he gets struck down with a brain tumor.
He does. I mean, this,
and
he's
then,
back for his hubris for playing the blues and, setting Willie Horton or whatever else it might be. But he didn't really.
It's even worse. It's even worse. And it's even worse because he has what we all thought was redemption, right? He had this protracted illness. He had this illness and he got all, and they were giving him steroids. He bloats up. The other interesting thing is
I'm sorry. I'm worried about going to hell.
Right. And he says all these things.
And they asked Stephen, did he become a Catholic? He became everything.
He became everything.
Everything.
He said whatever. But here's the thing. The last thing ends with a quote from Ed Rollins, who he actually was involved in getting Rollins fired from the old man Bush's administration, right? And replaces him, right? And they sort of come back together in a very funny, well, not so funny, in a very sad way. And Rollins has some compassion for the guy. And he says at the end, about this Christian, reborn again thing, that he commented to the wife about the Bible. And she says, and it closes with this, he never opened the Bible from its plastic wrap. He was spinning to the end.
To the minute he died.
To the minute he died. He was spinning to the end.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God,
well,
because
now you've given away the punchline of the movie. If you need a punchline, but it's true.
It doesn't diminish from the film's
an unredeemed villain in some ways, but he's just tainted the whole political process from then forward.
Right.
It hasn't changed, which is it's very sad.
And the other thing is, I was having a conversation with people. I saw Oliver Stone's W. Which is very problematic, because it's a description of a condition masquerading as like insight. It really doesn't explain, like the New Yorker said, W stands for why. You don't know, it never goes deep, right? Yeah. But when you put this story in the context of this struggle within the family, and you see the young Bush in the documentary, right, attaching himself to Atwater. And Atwater, he is going to control Atwater for the father.
Yeah, yeah.
And then in W, he says to his mother, I'm going to run for governor, of Texas. And she says, are you out of your mind? And you realize, whether that's fiction or not, you realize the tension and the irony that's there, right? And Atwater, guides him through this and then comes with him into the bigger, larger battle. And, and then Rove sort of comes in. And one of the comments that somebody makes is about when the political operative, it's one thing to be out there operating as the political operative. When you are brought into the White House and it's then you're in central command, that takes it to a whole nother level. And that, to me, is what's so condemning about the Bush family's legacy, right? And that's not even owned in, of course, Stone's version of the thing. There's some compassion for them. I mean, they need to be answerable too. And this, in a way, sort of gives you some more information to think about and contemplate how these guys operate,
Well, hopefully when people see this, we'll have a new president.
Yes, hopefully. But one other interesting thing is the business about Dukakis, right? He, Atwater was most famous probably for his Willie Horton ad, which he claims he had nothing to do with. And in this documentary, it's revealed from another source that he had everything to do with an illegal financing of this thing, which Forbes says actually should be the grounds for some kind of investigation of how this all happened. But the problem was Dukakis did exactly what Atwater figured the elite would do, right? He was trying to be above it. He wasn't going to answer these attacks, you know, the same way that he gave this intellectualized answer about if my wife is raped, right? And this is the kind of thing that Atwater was banking on. This kind of...
Well, Atwater had the nerve to say, what would you do if your wife were raped by someone just released from prison? What an offensive, awful question to ask.
Right.
But he always did that thing called slow talking.
Right.
Which he explains, well, if I just talk like this, the sort of Northerners
Well,
don't even know what to do with my
that's
questions.
exactly what slaves did. You know, that's exactly what slaves did. Act dumb, you know, and plan your escape. Act dumb and resist. And feed their own racism, right? So that's a whole nother twist to the story. There's so many interesting angles that are here to sort of think and probe further. You know, and this is a young filmmaker, you know, who wrote this, a local boy from the Boston area, from actually Cambridge in the Boston area, went to private schools, went to Brown. He has a background in both, I believe, sound engineering and music. The thing that attracted him and intrigued him first about this whole story was watching Atwater perform at the inaugural for, I think, the father, right, for Bush Sr. And because he could have been a performer on his own, you know.
He said he wasn't quite that good.
Well, I
sort of
was about,
reviewer
you would
and
know
the
that
nerve.
better, you're right.
Yeah,
But it wasn't Clinton on the saxophone. He was
Well,
better.
that's true.
It was better, way better than that, right? And it was more authentic than that. But it was not, you know, they come from similar kind of backgrounds when you think about it. And you know, the other thing I thought about too was that Sam Donaldson survived, I believe it was cancer, I believe it was a brain tumor, and he's in here reflecting. And also Novak is in here talking about how he almost got duped, and about Dukakis was trying, Atwater was trying to convince him of a total slander that Dukakis had a history of mental illness, which was truth about his wife, right? And I don't know whether the story's confused or he was just putting that on the belt, you know, on the conveyor belt. And Novak talked about how he didn't buy it, and he's, you know, he said one of my better moments. And of course, the tragedy and irony of all that is Novak is dying of a brain tumor, incurable, and has lost his sight.
Well, Gail Collins today, apparently the Republican National Committee is sending out mailings that show Obama and says terrorist on one side and says you don't really know who this man is. These are being sent in the mail to people across the country.
Right.
I mean, it's gotten that low that it just all stops out.
Yeah.
The battlefield's been opened. It doesn't matter what you do. Win the battle.
Well, you know, the polls, who knows what to believe, but the polls indicate that the public's not buying it, that they're not buying Palin.
We'll see what happens.
We'll
when this
see.
is shown, we'll see who is president. All of you may
It'll
know
tighten.
by now.
It will tighten. It'll tighten.
So, Stephen Forbes, kudos to this filmmaker.
Definitely.
For making this a really wonderful and amazing.
And he's going to be here
at the Coolidge.
At the Coolidge on
tomorrow night, which is Friday night.
For 3 Q&As.
24th or something, but
yeah.
This may not be up by then.
Oh.
But still, whoever is on YouTube or wherever, go see the film. It's definitely worth it. Okay, Larry. Wonderful. Thanks so much.
It was fun, and it's a great film to do.
Yeah, yeah. And come see it at the Coolidge. We'll see you at the Coolidge.